I'm Geoff Hodgetts. I'm the site director for Kingston Thousand Islands site. I'm also, as you heard, the Enhanced Skills Program Director, so I'll also be the one, if you have questions about that, the one to come to over the course of today. What we're going to try to do, the four site directors in the next little while, is give you a sense of the four communities that the Queen's program is placed in, and also a little bit of information, as much as we can within 20 minutes or so, about how our programs are structured, because, as Dr. Schultz has said, that while we have a common set of objectives and a common philosophy and approach, and we see ourselves as a single program, we interpret that in four different ways, and I think that's one of the strengths of the program, and something that I think you should see as an attracting feature. Just out of interest, how many people here in the room are familiar with the city of Kingston? Okay, about a third, I'd say. That's good. Well, Kingston's a very interesting city. I was born and raised here and went to high school, and then jumped ship and went to Toronto after that. You'll have to forgive me for that. When I had the opportunity to come back again, I jumped at that chance. It's a wonderful small city. It's the original capital city of what was Upper Canada. So you'll see lots of historic buildings around the city. At this time of year, it makes, because it's mostly in stone, it makes for a very gray landscape, but it doesn't always look like that. We're also, I think, defined by the fact that we're, as you can tell looking out the window of the hotel, we're right on the shores of, I never know which body of water it is I'm looking at. It's either Lake Ontario, which then becomes the St. Lawrence River, which is part of the Rideau Waterway if you turn the other way. So anyway, we're right on the shore of water, and I think that really defines a lot of the social life and the activities, and I think some of the attracting aspects of Kingston. It's also probably the freshwater sailing capital of Canada, at least, if not North America. And and you'll see lots of windsurfing and sailing going on here. And if that's something that you personally like to do, well, you might factor that into your decisions when you're making final decisions. Just to give you a little bit more sense of the community, I mean, each of us will do this before we sort of get into the nitty-gritty of your education and the structure of that, but Kingston's a pretty highly rated place. I like or is it the second one there? Yeah, the smartest city of Canada. It's kind of cool. Although a number of the PhDs I've got, well, I won't mention that. We should use that as the marker, I'm not so sure. But interesting that the one for the third one down there, where we placed fourth, I think, out of about 150 cities, is sort of top Canadian cities for young professionals to work and live. I think that's one I would pay attention to. And particularly if you have a partner coming along with you, and you need to think of your location in terms of opportunities for not just a good lifestyle, but perhaps for employment and so on. And so I think those are some of the things that are often the soft side of your decision, but are important. We also have one of, I think, the most vibrant downtowns. A lot of smaller cities, their downtown core has really died out because of the development of malls and suburbs and so on. And Kingston has somehow really maintained its historic and very attractive downtown core with lots of restaurants and lots of nightlife and everything within walking distance. A lot of us walk or just ride a bike to work. I think that's a huge, you can park your car, you probably need a car for some time, but for much of, particularly your first year, if you come to Kingston, you can just walk or ride a bike. Lots of things going on throughout the year, from the Feb Fest, which is in the winter time, at the rink, which is just out the door here. If you haven't seen people skating out there, there's lots of stuff going on in that square all year round with outdoor movies during summer and other entertainment. Lots of museums and galleries, including the Agnes Etherington Gallery, which is affiliated with Queen's University, which has a significant Rembrandt collection, if you're interested in that kind of thing. Also, the market, I didn't know this, it's North America's oldest continuously running public market. And again, that's right where the skating rink is there in the better weather, right through to late fall. There's a market, both antique and sort of fruit and veggie and cider and stuff like that goes on all the time. It's a real gathering point. Okay, let's look now at the hardcore stuff here. What's going to happen to you when you come to Queenston, to the Thousand Islands site in terms of your training? Well, the first year you're going to spend a fair bit of your time in one of these two family medicine teaching centers, the original one on the left, and right across the street from it, which is literally about, 2 blocks up from us, we're in Haynes Hall, where you'll be this afternoon for your interviews. So we're very centrally located downtown. We're very close, it's just a few blocks across the park to the Kingston General Hospital, which is the main teaching hospital, or a few steps across the parking lot from the Hotel View Hospital, and then not very far away to our other affiliated institutions for care of the elderly, palliative care, and so on. So everything's very centrally located, very close to the lake and in the old part of the city. As Dr. Schultz said, we have a more, I would say, traditional approach to the structure of the education here. That doesn't mean that we're sort of stuck in the past, because I think we are constantly looking at ways of not completely revamping it, because quite frankly I don't think this model is broken, so I don't think we really need to fix it too much, but where we are, I think, looking to enhance it around the development of competencies and providing a good model of continuity as well as the third C of comprehensiveness. So I'll show you some examples of what this might translate into based on a couple of residents' schedules. And those schedules are developed very much with your input and are designed so that they meet as best we can your individual needs for learning. So that the 13 blocks of your first year might look something like this, where you would start off with this in the Family Medicine Center for the first 8 weeks, first 2 blocks. Then you might go off and do general internal medicine and bring those skills and the knowledge you've learned there back to the same group of patients that you pick up again under the same preceptors and the same team for the next 2 blocks. You might then go off and do some obstetrics and perhaps some pediatrics. Because 13 is an odd number, it's never 2, 2, 2. There is one time when you have to go off for 3 blocks. And then you come back again to family medicine and so on. So that we've introduced this model relatively recently, and I think everyone really loves it. I think the patients love it. Certainly the preceptors appreciate having far more continuous time with the resident, and I think the residents really enjoy it as well. That's certainly the feedback that we've had. And at accreditation time, the accreditation team certainly liked it as well. It was pointed out as a very positive way of taking that CCC approach and translating it into what was in the past a fairly traditional structure. During the time that you're with us in family medicine, you don't spend all of your time in the clinic. You're also doing a number of different horizontals that we've developed that we constantly monitor and evaluate as to their effectiveness and their usefulness and their relevance. And I put a few of them up here. The one down the lower left, the resident-directed half-day, that's something I think that's quite unique that we've developed, where we acknowledge that you're human beings, that you've got a life, that you have things that have to get done. You might have an appointment that has to be kept. You might have something personal that needs to be done. You might have some home visits to catch up on, some paperwork. You might have a patient in the long-term care facility that needs an extra visit that week. And that time is given to you to really direct so that you look after those perhaps extra clinical responsibilities, but also to give you the time for looking after some personal needs as well. We're monitoring that and looking at how residents are actually using that time. Because I think it's an important little piece of how you spend your family medicine block time. We also really focus on teaching procedural skills, and as you've heard about the new sim lab, which is really, I've heard someone say, who knows a lot more about this than I do, it's probably the best one in North America. It's really state-of-the-art. It's absolutely huge, and we have full access to that. I think we're just scratching the surface, because it's so new, in terms of how we can optimally use this amazing facility that's available to us just literally across the park. So I think that your group, your generation, is really going to start to see an increase in how creative we can be about using simulation facilities that are of this world-class caliber. So a weekly organization chart might look something like this, where in yellow you're in the family medicine clinic with your team. You might have some time in the sexual health clinic at the public health unit. You might have a palliative care horizontal for that block. Your academic half day, which is a set piece on Wednesday afternoons. And you'd have every week, that wouldn't vary during your full-time family medicine, you have an assigned cohort of patients in a long-term care facility that you look after with one of our family medicine preceptors. And I think this has been added in again fairly recently. It's a feature that the residents really appreciate, because it's often an area that's neglected. I did a lot of, when I was in private practice and solo practice, I did a lot of geriatric care and long-term care. And I had no preparation or formal training for that. And it was very much learned by the seat of your pants. And so I think that little added element has been a very strong feature. So in the center of all the clinical work around that, you have a number of different academic activities that are structured during the week, including behavioral medicine teaching, your academic half days, and so on. So a year one might look like this, where that particular resident chose to stay in Kingston, with the exception that they wanted to do their internal medicine in Belleville. In the second year, let's look at that a little bit now. We have a requirement, again, of 16 weeks of what we out in a community teaching practice, which could be anywhere from Kingston to Cornwall to Moose Factory. And I'll show you just a rough list of some of the communities we have available to us, because it's quite a menu. And then we have what we refer to, most programs refer to, as a requirement for rural family medicine, which really means that it's in a smaller setting where, with a family physician preceptor who's providing obstetrical care as well as some hospitalist experience. And for the Queen's program, that's really easy to meet that objective, because we've had access to such practices, and we have relied, in fact, very heavily on such practices for our entire history. So unlike some more urban-based programs where they've had to really go out and beat the bushes to find such practices and to assign you to, you will have your choice of many different, a real wide variety of such practices that are very well established. So this particular person, this is what their second year looked like. Again, they, for personal reasons, needed to stay in or close to Kingston for as much of the year as they could. And again, because of family proximity, they did their rural experience in Port Perry. So again, that was done after discussion with the program assistant, with myself, so that we know why the person is there. It's not just, here, you're going to go to Port Perry next year at that time. No questions asked. Another resident chose to be out of town more often, they were able to, and wanted to explore some of the more different options, and in this case went up to Moose Factory in their second year, did their emergency in Napanee, which is just down the road, but is a completely different emerge setting where you're very much on your own, and where you see an incredible amount, a surprising amount of trauma coming in off the highway. Not a good thing, but it's good if you're a learner. And in this case, they're doing their family medicine at this moment in Brockville, but we've expanded the 4-week block there, the 4 blocks there, to integrate the objectives in palliative care and psychiatry rather than doing those as block experiences either in first or second year. We've integrated that into, along with some emerge objectives, into a prolonged, more horizontally integrated second year experience. And this is probably going to be the model that most of our second year residents will follow in the future. Is that we will have a longer period of time in one community where you're not just doing family medicine, but you're also achieving your objectives and achieving competency in areas such as emerge and psychiatry, pediatrics, and so on. In terms of electives, you'll have 3 elective blocks, 1 in the first year and 2 in the second year, as well as that 2-block selective for rural family medicine. So really you've got about 20 weeks of elective selective time over the 2 years, which I think is generous, but it's also very important and acknowledges the fact, and I think it recognizes our philosophy, that you are very much individuals. You've come here with different backgrounds, different strengths, different interest areas that are within the broad comprehensive scope of family medicine. And we want you to be able to explore them as much as is reasonable during the time that we have. So somebody might want to explore by looking at the physician as health advocate. They might want to look at prison medicine in a bit more detail. Not for everyone, but you're in Kingston. We've got lots of prisons. We've got this available to you. The pediatrics experience in St. Lucia, if you're interested in an international experience, it's part of, as Dr. Schultz said, our expanding interest in exploring global health, very much from the health advocate role, which is what we put at the center of our definition of global health. So that could be done in this factory, it could be done in a number of Canadian environments, or it could be done in international environments. I coordinate the Global Health third-year program. I'll talk a bit about that later today. And what we're looking at doing is establishing sort of a beachhead or a standard program that you would have access to. I'd like to have one on each continent, but I think that's probably getting a bit ahead of myself here. So we're looking at having at least 1 or 2 established options in Africa, perhaps 1 in India, West Indies, and perhaps in South America. If I asked sort of what are the main strengths of the program here, well, flexibility. Certainly, I don't know what they were doing, but it's flexibility. Our residents are very flexible people. That's what we look for. We look for interesting people who have lots going on in their lives and who are interested people as well. And the program is very flexible to accommodate that. I think it's really our defining feature. You'll hear that word a lot. Dr. Schultz used it, I think I counted about 4 times, but and you'll hear it more from the others, perhaps even more so, because that's how the sites are very individualized. And the other defining feature is just that we very much individualize your learning experiences so that we make use of this whole list of communities that our Kingston site residents can go to, where if I look at that list of place names, we've had very experienced, devoted preceptors working there for decades. A lot of them are graduates of the program. Graduates maybe long ago, and we've forgotten that they're graduates of the program, but graduates nonetheless. And as you've heard, this group keeps sort of repopulating itself. I can think of now 3 people who are recent graduates who want to become preceptors and teachers so that they can give back some of the experiences that they enjoyed working with our preceptors in the smaller communities. This is another picture from, from a group event. At the accreditation time last October, which is a very stressful event for programs and program directors to go through, the large auditing committee from the college summed up at their exit report, the chair of the committee, she said, to start off with, she said, you know, you've got really happy residents. And this picture sort of confirms that. There's some very happy preceptors in there too, I think. It's hard to tell who's who. And I think that speaks volumes, that sort of very almost pat or simple phrase of happy residents means a lot. If you analyze it, there's a lot behind those words. And I hope you'll get a sense of why that is when you talk to a resident panel. And I hope that by the end of the day you've got as good a sense as you can get of what the Queen's program and all its 4 sites has to offer you. So thanks very much, and if you have questions later, then we'll give you an opportunity to hopefully get them answered.